What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic and excellent spirits. As you see there on the bottom, welcome to the weekly Wednesday live stream. I've been doing this for now a little over 6 months, so roughly right about that. In fact, I've been doing some test runs when it comes to live streams, and even more so, I would think this coming Monday, which will be an anniversary that we could discuss on the podcast pregame coming at you 9:30 a.m. on Mondays. Also tomorrow, too, podcast pregame. I'll make a note of it to remind you later on toward the end of this live stream here. But, yeah, there's a lot cooking here with yours truly, a lot cooking with the live streams, as I got plenty to discuss here over the course of the next hour, hour and 15, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long it's going to be. It's you and I here, and I'm just beyond grateful to be here to discuss anything and everything that's happening in the world of sports. We are slowly getting out of this slow sports dead zone 2.0, as we've had probably since right after the 4th of July. And we've had some moments where sports has been percolating and a lot has been cooking, depending on the day or even the week. But now we could really start to see over the horizon college football, then the NFL. You'll have the pennant races in baseball, of course. And then once you get into October, it is full steam ahead. So glad to have you with me here. And I see a comment. I'll get to that in a moment. Of course, I got to go through the particulars here. Welcome to the latest final one of the month, August 27th. And it's actually what? The final unofficial ending of summer. It seemed like Memorial Day was 5 minutes ago. And 4th of July was about 60 seconds ago. I tell you, man, the time just flies. Whatever it is that you're doing this weekend, maybe we could touch on that at the back end. Whatever it is that you do, have fun, enjoy, whether it's family, friends, loved ones, or even by yourself. As long as you're aligned and in tune with yourself and what's going on in your world, and especially others around you, because as much as we are our own beings and we make our own decisions, etc. But if you do have people that are close to you, people that are obviously in contact, and I'm not just talking about contact via phone or text or anything like that. I'm talking about people you live with, people you are married to, or have children that you, of course, have at home. Yes, all that is important for you to make sure that, obviously, this is not going out on a limb. They're taken care of, but you also have to take care of yourself. And with that, you want to make sure that you close out this summer. Granted, we still have another month to go, but everybody wants to put the lid on summer come Labor Day. And sadly, it's actually early this year. As you know, it's on the 1st, not the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th. So I know I'm babbling here talking about this, but I just wanted to start off talking about the weekend as we get ready. And the weather's going to be nice here in the Northeast. So let me see who I got here. My man, Brent. Good afternoon to you north of the border. I appreciate you. I appreciate it. I know you had great stories there the other day. I'm sure once the room starts to populate, you could share as you went to go see the Jays and the Twins at the AKA formerly known as the Sky Dome, and now it's the Rogers Center. So I'm sure that looked like a great old time, despite the fact I know you're not a Jays fan. And I know you said that on the live stream last week when I had you on as a guest, and even weeks prior, so that is no secret, so I'm not trying to shout you out there. But with that being said, just like I shared Brent's thoughts, share your thoughts. You know the drill. And even if you're not watching live, for those who are looking at the replay, please leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to follow up with whatever's on your mind, whatever's going on, whatever's happening, etc. If you agree with what I'm saying, disagree, doesn't matter. I want you to post it, and I'll be sure to react to it, follow up, etc., just to know that you are included, even if you're not with us live. Now, I also want to get to this, which is up, and I know, Brent, I just replied to you not too long ago. Critique video on the channel, up now, where a former ESPN personality, June Lee, posted a video a couple of months ago on his channel, maybe longer than that. I would say maybe 3-4 months ago, and how he was talking about sports media being broken. And I found it fascinating because in this day and age where you have a bunch of yahoos that are trying to blaze a path and carve a trail, whether it's on YouTube or in the podcast universe, and they'll pretty much do anything and everything to get themselves known. So if that means they got to yell and scream, or they got to post the clickbait, rage bait titles and thumbnails, which obviously is going to either A, trigger people, or B, have them click. And then meanwhile, it's a bait and switch. And if you've known me, followed me, etc., I am opposed to that. And there is a way to fix it, although it is not a one-size-fits-all. It is in the common sense grand scheme of things, but you'd have to watch it and see, is sports media broken? And I have a couple of ways, really, two ways that it can be fixed. And it's actually quite simple, but a lot of people aren't going to abide by that. So therefore, you're going to have people come out with the crazy, insane titles and thumbnails and just over-the-top behavior, speaking into a microphone or yelling into a microphone and thinking that that's entertainment. So check that out. I'd love to get your thoughts and critiques on that as well. Now, let's get to what we got cooking. I said this on a podcast Monday, how Major League Baseball could be headed for a rather quiet September. And based on what we've seen here over the course of the last 2 days, now we understand that in the AL West and the NL West, you have races there where both the Dodgers, Padres, NL West, and the Mariners, Astros, AL West are probably going to fight it out to the very end, at least so we think, as far as who's going to win a division, who possibly may get a bye in the first round. Obviously, we got to wait and see how the other records for the division leaders shake down. But when we, take a look at what is happening throughout baseball, now we understand the Dodgers have a 1-game lead, as well as the Astros. Now it's 2 in the loss, but 1.5 up. Everything else, I don't want to say it's a formality if you're in the AL East, even the NL East for that matter. And I'll get to the NL East in a couple of minutes. But for the Blue Jays, who have been in first place since before 4th of July, so it's going on 2 months, and they currently have a 4-game lead over both the Yankees and Red Sox. Now the Yankees are 4.5 back. And even though there could be a threat there because the Yankees still have 3 more games against Toronto, same for the Red Sox for that matter, Toronto's schedule is not that difficult. They have a couple of series that are going to be tricky, but nothing that would be alarming, similar to the Mets. And I'm going to get to them. But when it comes to September and pennant race baseball, and we understand it's not the pennant race baseball of yesteryear, where you just had the 2 divisions. Now, this is going pre-1995, pre-strike, where if you had a few teams that were near the top of each division, and as you know, whether it was the NL East or West, AL East or West, only one team was coming out of each division. So you had races to where if you're 2 teams that were, let's say, within a game or 2 behind first place, that's where you have a pennant race. Where now it seems like you don't really have that, because even in the case of Dodgers Padres, if they go down to the wire and they're not playing against one another for the rest of the year, they're already done with their season series, as you've seen them play here over the last 2 weekends. If one of those teams falter and not win a division, they're still going to make the playoffs. So it's not a thing where you're really going to be on the edge of your seat wondering, the Padres are going to make it into the playoffs, or if the Dodgers get knocked out of first place, does that mean they're out? No, that is not going to be the case. So you lose a lot of steam when it comes to divisional races in that regard. And then with the wild card, as it is right now, in the National League, the Mets have a 3.5-game lead over the Reds, and I'm only going to include the Reds. I'm not including any other team after that. Cardinals, Diamondbacks, no way. And then in the AL, although you have a fight at the top between Red Sox, Yankees, Mariners, and when I say top, it's for the wild card. So the Red Sox, if the season ended today, they would be the home team in the wild card round, where the Yankees would go to Boston. And in Seattle, who is right now 2 in the loss behind the Yankees and the Red Sox, but they are a full 2 games behind the Red Sox and a 1.5 games behind the Yankees. So when you have a situation where those 3 teams are probably in all likelihood going to fight it out to see who is either going to get the home field as a 4 seed and then 5, 6, depending on where they end up. But you have the Royals, who are 3 back, the Rangers 4.5 back, and then the Guardians, who finally won a game yesterday as they shut out the Rays. Are you really going to look at them as a team that's going to make a push here as you get to September? I mean, when you have both wild card scenarios right now. And I understand 3 games is not 8 games back. Understood, anything can happen. But do you really trust the Royals? And they made it to the playoffs last year. But do you really think that they're going to have it in them to have this run where they're going to go? I'm just throwing numbers out. I don't know how many games they have in September. But let's say, are they going to go 18-7 or 17-7? I got to include a couple of days off there. In September, in order for them to get into the playoffs, I don't see it. And the same for the Reds. And they're managed by Terry Francona, who knows his way around playoff, postseason, and pressure baseball. But that Red team, despite them being young and have talent and a very good pitching staff, are they going to make a push? Are they going to be a team that, wow, here it is, September 15th, and now they're tied for the last playoff spot with the Mets there in the National League wild card? Right now, I don't see it. I'm sorry. Now, of course, anything can happen, and this is me just trying to look into my crystal ball to see how this will play out. And I'm not saying that, let's say as a Met fan, that, oh, the Reds aren't going to catch the Mets. Now, the Mets and the Reds, they still have 3 games left against one another, and the Mets have to go to Cincinnati starting next Friday. And the Mets have an enormous trip forthcoming, which I'll touch on in a second before I get to Mets-Phillies, because that's going to be the focal point of this baseball segment. But the big question, I understand it's August 27th, and the season concludes a month from tomorrow on Sunday, September 28th. Do you really see any intrigue, any suspense, any drama forthcoming here in these wild card and division races? Because the AL and NL Central, forget about. We talked about the AL East. We talked about both the AL East and AL West and NL West. And then there's the NL East, because you have a scenario where the Mets are playing the Phillies right now, and the Phillies, who were in first or are in first place, who are in first place, they have a now 5-game lead. They came into the series against the Mets Monday night with a 7-game lead. And I know for the Met fan, that's almost cringeworthy when you think of, in the same sentence, Mets, Phillies, 7-game lead. I bring that up because in 2007, I know this is a bad one for the Met fan to swallow, and that includes yours truly. The Mets, if you recall, in 2007 had a 7-game lead over the Phillies in the division with 17 games to play. And how did that shake out for the Amazons? They didn't even make the postseason. And this is now in an era where they could have fallen back for the wild card. But the thing is, they couldn't, because they were in a race for the division. Now, that's a pennant race. Now, it was a pennant race that the Mets imploded on and spit the bit and were just god-awful. But now I don't want to say the roles are reversed, because the Phillies are going to make the playoffs, even if the Mets do catch them, surpass them, and somehow, some way win a division. And check the receipts. I said this as early as maybe not this past Monday, the Monday before, where I thought the Mets still had a shot to win this division, despite the fact that they have a lot of work to do and still a lot of ground to make up. And even if they win tonight's game, to sweep the Phillies out of Citi Field, and mind you, the Phillies have lost 9 straight at Citi Field, including the 2 games in the postseason last year. So, I mean, anything's possible. But I think in order for them to, the Mets that is, in order for them to win this division, they're going to have to run the table. So that means they're going to have to, for all intents and purposes, maybe not sweep all 7, but they're going to have to win 6 out of 7. So that means winning tonight and then winning 3 out of 4 minimum in Philadelphia, which will be next or 2 weeks from now from this time frame. So off the top of my head, that would be the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th in Philadelphia. Still a lot of work. But the Phillies, just like I've said, probably about 3-4 weeks ago, they've been playing hot potatoes since the middle of May, where the Mets were in first place, and then they said, we don't want it. Philly, take it. Then Philly had a 3-4 game lead, and they said, oh, no, too much. Come on, Mets, you got it. And the Mets were in first place for quite some time. And then the Mets spit it up to where now the Phillies are in first place. So maybe now it's time for Philly to kind of feel the heat, and now they're going to pass the potato to the Mets as we get into September. I mean, who knows? I'm trying to remain optimistic. Now, I think they're going to make the playoffs. They have a 3.5 game lead, and I understand the Reds, everything I just talked about. But at the same time, I'm looking at this division as one that is gettable. I mean, it really is. Because do you trust Philadelphia 100% despite the fact that they got a lot of big bats in that lineup and they're starting pitching, even though without Zach Wheeler, but it's still very good. And understand Joan Duran did not have a performance that any Philly fan is going to remember from here on out. He came into the ninth inning of a tie game last night, and he didn't even record an out. He gave up 4 singles, and the Mets win 6-5. So this Philly team, despite the fact that their recent pedigree, making it to a World Series in 2022, losing brutally in an NLCS to the Diamondbacks when they were up 3-2 going home to Arizona, and they lost the last 2 games in their building. And then last year, it loses to the Mets in the divisional series, which would mean that if they somehow, some way did not win a division, that doesn't automatically mean that they'll have a bye, but watch them be a wild card team and not make it out of the wild card round, which who knows? You could see Mets Phillies when it's all said and done, and we have to take a look to see where the standings are at that point when we get to the end of the season. We know the Brewers are going to have the 1 seed, at least so we think. So it's going to be between Dodgers and Phillies to see who's going to get that 2 seed. And who knows, if the Phillies get to 3rd, where LA's 2nd, then you're going to have a scenario where you may see Phillies Mets in the first round. And who knows? Obviously, they've been trending backwards from 2022 to last year. Could that continue this year? Still a ways to go. But if they do have the Mets playing the Phillies, remember, Philly does not have to come to New York to play those games because all 3 games will be in Philadelphia. So with all that being said, Mets Phillies tonight. And I have a big announcement that I'm going to make later on toward the end of this live stream, which I will discuss. I see a couple of comments I'll get to in a second. And for the Mets, let's see if they could sweep the Phils out of New York, get themselves to 4 games. They have the Marlins coming to town for 4, starting tomorrow, And let's see, because right after that, the Mets have a 10-game road trip starting on Labor Day. And I don't know if my man Cole is in the room from Michigan. But they'll have 3 in Detroit, followed by a day off. 3 in Cincinnati that I mentioned, which is going to be huge for the Reds. And then 4 in Philadelphia, which I've also detailed. So a 10-game road trip after this homestand. And knowing that they would have to get out of these next 5 games, I mean, it's 3 out of 5. They should actually get 4 out of 5. So win tonight and then win 3 out of 4 over the weekend against the Marlins. So you go 6-1 and then head on the road, which the Mets have not been a good road team. I think their record off the top of my head was it 28-37. I mean, it is that bad. Let me see as I pull this up. It's exactly right. They are 9 games under 500 on the road, where at home they're 11 over. But that 10-game trip could be telling to see whether or not they make it into the playoffs. And that's not a stretch because let's just say, for argument's sake, they have a good week and the Reds, all right, let's say they're 4 back going into next Monday. You have a situation where they're going to go to Detroit. Detroit's playing a lot better now. And let the Mets lose 2 out of 3. And I don't know who the Reds are playing at that time, but let's say the Reds win 2 out of 3, which would mean what? No harm, no foul when I think about it. But let's just say they're 3 back or even 2 back for that matter. Then they go ahead and do a number on the Mets. Now, they'd have to sweep, especially if they're more than 3 games back, if they're 3, 3.5, or 4. If they win 2 out of 3, they'll make up a game in the standings, but you're already into September. So when you think you have time, that's when you realize you don't. So how I see it, Cincinnati, I'm sure they want to target going into that series as a team that's less than 3 games behind that final wild card spot, because let's say if they do sweep and if they're 2 games back, that means that they'll have the 6th seed at the end of that series. And even if it's a scenario where they're 2 back and they win 2 out of 3, all right, so they end up being 1 back. They could live with that. Anything more than that, now, if they're 3 back and they win 2 out of 3 and they gain a game, all right, fine. But still, time is going to be on your side. And I understand that the Mets will have to go to Philadelphia after that, where Cincinnati, and let me take a look at this schedule just for intents and purposes of this discussion. Now, the Red schedule is as follows. They play the Dodgers again tonight. Then they host St. Louis. They host Toronto Labor Day week to start off the week. Then the Mets. Then they go to San Diego at the Athletics and St. Louis. And then they finish up with Chicago, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee. That is a tough schedule. Now, I understand. You got St. Louis, 6 games. All right. Winnable games. You host Pittsburgh, the next to last series of the year. But the remaining part of your schedule is at LA today, 3 games against Toronto, 3 games against the Mets, 3 in San Diego, 3 against the Cubs, and 3 against Milwaukee. I mean, if the Mets don't make it to the playoffs, there needs to be an investigation. And that's not a knock on the Reds. And if they don't make it, I mean, if they beat the teams that are in front of them and they somehow, some way are a game better than the Mets and clinch the playoffs, they deserve it and they've earned it. But boy, that is a bit of a gauntlet. So this is my first time looking at their schedule since whatever. I haven't even looked at a Red schedule past August 31st in quite some time. And now as I look at it, I could see why these games are mega important. And today's game, is that an afternoon game? No, it's a night game. All right. Because, they have those LA games at 4 o'clock. So by the time 7 o'clock rolls along and the Mets will be playing the Phillies, I'd be curious to see how that, if the Reds will either inch closer or fall back from the wild card race. But that's what you have. And again, I don't see any intrigue. I don't see anything that is really worth unpacking when it comes to baseball as we get into September. Because besides, I see some comments. I'll get to this after my baseball segment, which will conclude in about 60, 90 seconds. Now, I'm hoping to get some excitement. I'm hoping to see some drama. Maybe not so much with my Met team, but in all seriousness, what we live for in September, if you're a baseball fan, is you want to see close races. So whether that means divisional races, in this case, wild card. But right now, I don't really see it. And yes, I know Dodgers, Padres, and Astros, Mariners, although I think the Astros and Dodgers will both clinch their divisions when it's all said and done, even if it comes down to the final week. If it comes down to the final day, baseball, that's what they want. But I don't know. Fight me off. Tell me what you think. Say to me, no, Jay Reels, you're wrong. I think this race, or I think the Royals have it in them, or I wouldn't be surprised if the Guardians are going to start making a late charge, or even the Reds. And I just went through their schedule. So love to hear your thoughts. That is it for the baseball. Mets, Phillies, looking forward to it tonight. And there's a little hint for my big announcement later on. Mets, Phillies, and tonight. So stay tuned for that because you're not going to want to miss it. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah, comments coming through fast and furious. All right, Brent. No pennant races anymore. It's all about wild card race. Yeah. The divisions you could say to a certain extent, but not really because for everything I just detailed. All right, LFGM, we know what that's about. Parabolic Mike era. Yes. Phillies got no in the World Series 2022. Yes, they did. And that came after a game where they mauled Lance McCullers in game 3. They were up 2-1. And then I want to say, who was the pitcher in game 4? Was it Christian Javier? I think it was. And all those pitchers, I think it was like 4 pitchers combined for a no-hitter. And that was it. The life was taken out of the Phillies. And then Justin Verlander pitched game 5, and he barely got through 5 innings, I remember. And I was in Puerto Rico when that series was happening. And I remember watching game 5 and game 6. I was still in Puerto Rico. It was a Saturday night. It was rainy too. And I remember after the Yordan Alvarez home run off of Alvarado, I shut it off. I didn't want to bore the wife to tears. I mean, here I am watching World Series baseball on a vacation. And it's like, hon, I got to watch this. All right, I'll let you watch game 5, but game 6. And I'm like, but that could be the clincher. You know how that goes. But once Alvarez hit the home run, I said, no, there's no way that the Astros was going to lose. And sure enough, that's what happened. But yeah, I remember that vividly, though. Val, what is happening? Yes. Verlander wins. Here we are just talking about him, too. Cole, what is happening? Hello to you, sir. And just so you know, I got your email. I will follow up. I appreciate that, too, very much. And Val, yes, third in the NL West, but we know the Giants. It's going to be a long September for them unless they run the table and literally run the table. They have to go like 28-2 in order to get to playoffs, I think. Cole, answering your question, sir, J-Rod. Yes. And you name your son J-Rod. Now, it's funny because should I start? Well, listen, I call you Cole here because I see you're as Cole Trickle. And I know you have another comment below, which I'll get to in a moment. But when we chat on YouTube, when you reply to a comment or follow up to whatever it is that I say in my short videos, should I just continue to call you Jay there, but Cole here? Or can I call you Cole there? Or I understand it's a nickname. And even though it was from a young age, because I feel if I call you Jay here, people say, well, where's Jay? Jay, there's no Jay in here. There's Cole. So it's one of those things where I know it could get tricky. I guess maybe I should just stick to what it is. When you respond on YouTube, I'll just call you Jay there. And then here, I'll just call you Cole. Right? All right, what's going on here? Oh, yeah. Giants looking good, struggling at home, but yeah, maybe a wild card. Oh, wild card. Listen, Val, like I said, your team's going to have to pull an inside straight in order for you guys to make the playoffs. I'm not trying to say that to throw cold water on your team, but yeah, you know where they are in the standings. What are they back in the wild card? If I had to take a guess, they got to be like 6.5 back minimum. Let's pull up the standings here one more time. 7 back. And that's a hard 7? Yes. It's unlikely. And you're 4 games on the 500. Now, I know you've won 3 in a row and you've beaten up the Cubs here, beating up on the Cubs. But, yeah, I don't know if I see that happening. I know you talked about Matt Chapman, 17 home runs now. Yes, indeed. All right, Cole, Val, maybe he gets going, helps the Giants fight. Hey, listen, a lot of ground to make up, but it's all good. It don't matter. Call me what you want. No worries. So, I appreciate that, Cole. I'll just stick to Cole here, Jay through YouTube, and cheers. Again, this is H2O. It's not vodka, not moonshine, not coconut water, although coconut water would be good right now to get those electrolytes replenished, etc. All right, now let's see what else we got here. All right, now let's turn my attention here because I'll start here. This is for you, Cole. I understand you had a few games on the schedule this past weekend. Iowa State, Kansas State being the marquee game because it was in Dublin and Iowa State won, as I'm sure you know by now. But the curtain gets raised on college football starting tomorrow because really the schedule starts tomorrow night. And I know you have Colorado playing on Friday, I believe. So Dion, who has his quarterback there, what's his name? Caden Salter, I think his name is. I'm just pulling up the schedule here so I can run through this real quick. Or Caden Salter. I mispronounced his name. Now, tomorrow, I guess the main game that you're going to see, ESPN, Boise State, South Florida. Yeah, they don't really have a highlight game. I know ESPN is showing the 2 games there, Nebraska, Cincinnati. Oof, that's a snooze fest. And then they're showing Georgia Tech, Colorado, obviously for Dion. And, everybody's going to look to see how the Buffaloes do, obviously with no Shedeur Sanders, no Travis Hunter, and Colorado will certainly have, I don't want to say a bullseye because they're not going to be in the discussion as far as a national championship goes, or even a playoff for that matter. Seriously, but we all know that Saturday is the big day. That is officially when college football begins, in my eyes. And you have the 3 big games to start you off. Texas at Ohio State, and I believe Texas is favored in the game, aren't they not? No. Texas was originally favored, and then Ohio State now, because the game is at home, and a lot of people look at the preseason rankings as Texas being number 1, and they're going into Columbus to go against the defending national champions. And when you ask me, Arch Manning, expectations, the name, the pedigree, etc., I know this may be a bit of a stretch because It's on the road. It's going to be hostile because everybody's going to be celebrating. Sorry, Cole, I know this is going to sting here, but they're going to be celebrating their national championship from last year. So it's going to be a very festive and celebratory mood. But to me, this is a very important game for Arch Manning. And I say it in this regard. Now, I understand he's not going up against a big-time quarterback. It's not as if it's a situation where, despite them being the defending champs, that you got a quarterback that's coming back to play. Obviously, you had Will Howard there last year. Will Howard now on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. But when I look and see how this is going to unfold, and you have a guy in Julian Sayin who nobody's ever seen play or even thrown a football, how he's going to perform could be big, especially Texas's defense. And I'm sure it'll probably be a turnover machine. But I say it's important for Arch Manning. Let me get back to that. I say it's important for him because despite the fact that Ohio State, the pedigree, et cetera, but he's going up against a quarterback that is beyond green. And this isn't to say that Arch Manning is going to be Peyton or Eli for that matter, or even his grandfather Archie, but I think they can make a statement. And I remember last year, and again, I hate to be a bearer of bad news, Cole, and I'm sure you remember this. Last year when Texas went to the Big House, I believe that was in week 2. And they went in there and they blew the doors off of Michigan. So I feel like Texas, this is going to be a similar scenario for this Longhorn team to have to go on the road to play in what's going to be, I don't want to say a hostile environment, but again, it's going to be celebratory. Everybody's going to be looking at what happened last year. I'm sure they're going to replay all the videos and get everybody pumped and psyched and so on and so forth. But I could really see this being almost a carbon copy for Texas, similar to what we saw last year. And if Texas comes out firing, I don't know if Ohio State is going to be able to catch up because based on who's going to be on the center there come Saturday at high noon. I mean, that's all there is to it. And I'm not making Archie Manning out to be a 3-year player. Now, he had some playing time last year, but now him being a full-time starter with Quinn Ewers in the NFL, and then I believe he's in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. I understand he doesn't have a ton of experience, and I understand it's not as if he's going into, let's say, his junior year where it's like, well, junior year in the sense where he's played as a freshman, sophomore, etc. So who knows which Arch Manning we're going to get? Are we going to get a guy that's going to methodically march his team down the field? All right, he may have a moment or two. He's going to maybe throw a few incompletions. Ohio State defense will get to him, etc. But how I look at it is that if he cannot get out of this game alive, not to say that the Texas Longhorn season is just going to go kaput, but I'm going to compare this to the Michigan game last year, and this is why it's big for Arch Manning to win, because he's going up against an opponent that, although will be ready, jacked up, etc., but Texas should win the game despite the fact of the 1.5-point spread for the Buckeyes. So that's the first game. The second game, you have Alabama and Florida State. Now, Florida State, they've been bad in these opening games. You saw last year when they lost to Georgia Tech, and then the year prior to that, they lost to LSU, I believe. What was that? Wasn't that the Sunday night game of, as I'm getting spam calls here. Wasn't that the Sunday night game? Because the Sunday night game this year is Miami. They'll be hosting Notre Dame, and they have not fared well in these opening weekend matchups. So now they have Alabama coming into their building, and with Kalen DeBoer, the head coach, second year, to see how his team's going to respond after not making it into the playoff last year, I think this is more telling for Alabama. Want to get off to a good start, and I think they will. Florida State, they haven't recovered, if you ask me, since that perfect season where the kid Jordan Travis broke his leg and they should have gone on to maybe represent in the Final Four, the final year where college football had the 14 playoff. And even when Travis broke his leg and the selection committee did not pick them to play in the playoff, and then everybody was outraged down in Tallahassee. Oh, I can't believe it. We got robbed. We got this. We got that. They sat pretty much everybody. And, of course, they didn't have the quarterback, which was huge. And what happened? They got lambasted by Georgia in their bowl game. So ever since that time, Florida State has not been able to get out of their own way. And I could see the same thing happening here. Now, I could see it being competitive because, everybody down there is going to be it's going to be hot. Everybody's going to be pumped up. Everybody's going to be raring to go there down in Tallahassee and trying to will their team to victory. But Alabama, we know what the expectation is. It's get to the playoff and even more so, get to a championship and win. No more victories. It's not about, we've got to qualify. And even if we're an 8th seed no. Alabama, if you think about it, they're like the Yankees. They're like the Lakers. And once upon a time, the Montreal Canadiens. It is championship or bust. Anything less than that, it has been a bad year. And then your nightcap there on Saturday night is LSU, the aforementioned Tigers. They will play Clemson, which is going to be a very good game. And those are always going to be those opening day matchups. You're always going to have marquee throughout. And how I look at LSU and Clemson. Now, Clemson, ever since the days of Deshaun Watson and then, of course, Trevor Lawrence, they have fallen on hard times. I mean, let's face it. They have not been the same team. Yes, have they been competitive? Absolutely. And I understand they're playing a conference where it's pretty much going to put you to sleep. Now, that may change this year. And let's see what Bill Belichick does in North Carolina because he's going to be the big story. And that's Monday night's game to wrap up the holiday weekend where you're going to have Bill Belichick in his first ever college game where they have TCU coming into their building. So, but for LSU and Clemson, to me, this is more on Clemson because they are at home. LSU is a team that we would expect to be in the running. I don't know if they're going to qualify. We know the SEC is loaded, but I think it's a bigger game for Clemson. They're at home. They should, I'm not saying they will, they should be able to beat the Tigers and therefore get themselves off to a good start because when you look at their schedule, it's not as if they have a bunch of teams that they got to really beat. I mean, look at the schedule. They have Troy the following game, at Georgia Tech, Syracuse, at North Carolina. That could be a nightcap game or a night game on Saturday. Right now it's to be determined. At Boston College, SMU, and I understand SMU last year, their success, and they're ranked right now 15th in the nation. Duke, Florida State, Louisville, Furman, and South Carolina. I mean, and I understand South Carolina is going to be tough late in the year. We'll see. But are any of those games, are you going to be shaking in your boots if you're a Tiger fan to think that, I don't know, this is going to be a tough game. We got Florida State. They're coming to our building. No, this isn't the Bobby Bowden Florida State teams of yesteryear. And North Carolina, right now, they're a big question mark. We don't know what they're going to be like once we get started here. And not to say that Monday night's going to be any indication where the Horned Frogs are going to come in, and I'm sure they'll be competitive, but with Belichick and whatever system he's going to implement there, and understand you need a quarterback, I don't know if there's going to be a, dare I say, Tom Brady under center there for the Tar Heels, but yeah, it's one of those things where with Clemson, you know that there's expectations there, and with their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, he's going to be expected to do big things this year, maybe not national championship, but you would think that Clemson will be one of the 12 that will come out, based on the schedule. And getting off to a good start, there's a lot of pressure on them. Because if LSU wins that game, then not to say Clemson's season is done, because they could get in with 2 losses, but you don't want to take your chances where SMU is frisky and they may pull an upset on the road, or having to go to South Carolina on the last game of the year and knowing that you're going to need that game to avoid getting a third loss if you do lose against the Tigers there on Saturday night. So, yeah, I look at this game being squarely on Clemson with all the pressure on them. And obviously, we'll talk about it all on Monday's podcast and even the podcast pregame for that matter. As you know, I'll have a couple of things to share. And then you have Notre Dame, Miami, which obviously has its history. We all know, dating back to the famous 88 game, 1988, Catholics versus convicts. And then you had the blowout game. What was it, 56-0? Jimmy Johnson running up the score on them down in the Orange Bowl. I think it was the year after, or was that in 90? where Jerry Faust was the head coach. Let me look that up. 56-0, I remember. That was Miami, Notre Dame. And I remember that was a CBS game. Oh, 1988. There you go. Oh, no, 88. Was it 88 or 89? Well, I'm going to start. No, that's 89. 88 is Catholics Convicts. I did say that before, right? J Reels? I'm lost. So, no, that's not the game. No, that's not it. 89. Now I'm going to do this. All right. I don't want to kill more of your time by having to break this down, but let me just look at their schedule real quick. No, it doesn't say that there. That had to be 88, or maybe it was 90. One of these years, one of these teams, I know, beat them 56-0. Is this it right here? No, it is not. All right. So enough of the history lesson, but you do know that they had some memorable games, and who can forget the Catholics Convicts game, Cleveland Gary, the ball to one where they call it a fumble, where, I mean, I get it, these rules, the ground caused a fumble, etc. And that was a great game. So for the Canes and Fighting Irish, though, rematch there on Sunday night. And that is your college football. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. And I'm sure Cole has a thing or two to say about it. Let me pull up the comments. Yep, there's quite a few here. So let's see what you got, Cole. All right. What is this here? All right, Cole. Yeah, nothing crazy going on during the week. Yes, it is. Certainly set up to be a banger for sure. Cole, dire Michigan fan. So with that said, I can't say anything else about. Listen, and I wouldn't expect you to do so. So that is perfectly fine by me. Texas wins in a close game. Oh, you think it's going to be close? You know what? Probably will. I'll say it's like 20-17. I can see that. Ohio State reminds me a lot of Michigan last year. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And I didn't mention that. And it's funny because I did think about that because obviously, now, of course, Ryan Day's there where Harbaugh was gone. But yes, there are similarities there where Michigan, when they won their national championship, then the following year having to Sharon Moore getting the promotion, Harbaugh gone, and with all of the moving parts that had transpired, it could set up Ohio State to have that type of year. And it's all predicated on how the quarterback does. But, yeah, that was an excellent comparison there. I give you credit for that for sure there, Cole. I completely got sir my way. Oh, is that right? Oh, wow. I appreciate it. Tell your wife thank you. And if she happens to be next to you, beside you, etc. I was going to say Mrs. Cole, but thank you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And not only that, but maybe I don't know how much of a sports fan your wife is, but I also have some other like lifestyle content there. She could go through the tabs as I talk about certain things. And I have some lifestyle stuff there as well. Kind of like to fit that in to the channel because we all need some reinforcements from time to time. And not to say that by any means I'm living a picture-perfect life, but we all try to find our little slices of heaven or the things that make us tick or the things that we know that bring us joy and we know we need to unplug. Yeah, I'm into all that type of stuff. So, yes, Val, thank you so much. I appreciate that as always. Waving back to you, Val. And Val says, Cole, I have Matt Chapman jersey, 17 home runs. Yes, he does. And I know you mentioned that they won 5-2 up here, Val. So I got to give you a plug that in for you as well. She is. Bless your heart. Thank you so much again. And I thank everybody for profusely here. So if you get sick of it, just say, J-Reel's enough or stop. We get it. Because again, you guys are taking time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say. You certainly could go about your business and do whatever it is that consists of your day, but just knowing that, and obviously your husband's a very good man, just by him being here and you being here as well, and Val, and I saw there was a couple other people in and out earlier, again, goes without saying how much I appreciate you guys and just really taking the time out to listen to what it is I have to say. And again, this is the toy department of life, as I call it, because, yeah, I could talk about life stuff. I can get into all that stuff, and love it. But this is a little escape for people that want to listen to sports, talk sports. And I'm sure yesterday, Cole, we'll have a little fun here. So to Mrs. Cole, I know your husband put up a comment yesterday where he said that, love the channel, but can we get rid of this Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce stuff? And listen, that is me all in a nutshell. And the only reason why I brought that up is because of the halftime thing. I was trying to be a little, forecast what could possibly happen. And does it really matter in the grand scheme of things whether or not she's going to perform at the halftime? I got nothing against Taylor Swift. I'll say that because maybe you love Taylor Swift, Mrs. Cole. Nothing against her. We know how big of a superstar she is. And I know some of her songs. I really don't follow pop music like that, although I try to at least know who's relevant and who's around. But am I going to go see Taylor Swift in a concert anytime soon? No, I will not. And not because I don't like her or I'm not crazy about her music. Some of it's catchy, but just not my cup of tea. That's all. So, and yeah, it's a thing where kudos to them, but I won't spend another 5 seconds on this because I'm sure Cole's like, oh, you're going down that road. But in all seriousness, it's one of those things where I just brought it up just to see if it stuck, and stuck a little bit, but not one that I'm going to expound on. All right, and Cole, Valby, if I got rid of every piece of clothing I have in Michigan, oh, geez. Yeah. And that's the one thing I know it's tough when you get jerseys and for the players that you love and they get traded away or they sign on as a free agent elsewhere. And that's the dirty side of being a fan, because if you buy the jersey, especially with the name and number on the back, and that player's not there, unless you get a throwback. So, for instance, even though he played on 3 other teams after he left the Mets, but if you're going to wear a Darryl Strawberry Met jersey, all right, people are going to know, all right, well, Darryl Strawberry played the majority of his career in a Met uniform. Or, I mean, you could go through a laundry list of people. Let's say the Angel fan had a Shohei Ohtani jersey, and understand they may want to throw it in the garbage or give it to Goodwill or not wear it ever again. But it's a thing where keep the jersey anyway because he did play for the team. And understand he's not on the team now. And maybe when he retires, which is still another, 9 years after this contract, then maybe you could break it out. I mean, I don't know. But it is tough to be a fan sometimes because if you like a player or you want to wear that player's jersey to support him, the team, etc., and then that player gets traded or signs on elsewhere, whatever, it's like, all right, now I'm left with a piece of laundry that I'm rarely going to wear unless, I don't know, you're at home cleaning the garage. I mean, that's just how it is. But, but it's tough. I mean, it really is. And the funny thing is, I don't have a lot of jerseys, too, of players. I had like Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys from back in the day from a couple of players. I had a Piazza jersey once upon a time as a Met fan. Islanders, I didn't get any names or numbers on the back. Celtics, I have a Paul Pierce jersey, which I still have, but that's a case in point where the majority of his career is with the Celtics. So even if you wear it now, obviously he's been long retired, you're going to say, oh, yeah, Paul Pierce, all right, great. But when he got traded to the Brooklyn Nets, then he went to the Washington Wizards and ended up with the Clippers, it's almost like, yeah, I'm wearing a Paul Pierce jersey, but he's no longer with the team. So, but let's see. Cole, what do you got here? All right. She just said she does. Yeah, I hear that. Oh, she's won 2. Good for her. Either, and she is not a crazy sports fan like me. She goes because of me, and that's about it. All right. Well, that's a loving wife supporting her husband, just like I know my wife supports me doing this endeavor, considering, and it's not even an endeavor. It's just something I do. And it's just a matter of time, knock on wood, and I understand business practices and angles and pivoting and things of that nature, where I start to generate income, because pretty soon she's going to be like, yeah, it's been a year and a half. What's going on here? And she has asked that before, but from the standpoint of her coming out and saying, you got to get a job. What are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. But I know my day, my time will come, and the universe, this is why I do these live streams. This is why I do a bunch of different other things, the shorts, the critique videos, the podcasts, because it's all encapsulated. And just like with any social media platform, whatever you put out, sometimes it may get to that one person at that given moment, and who knows where it could go. So that's why I got to continue to put myself out there for the world to see. So, Cole, you have, representing the maize and blue. And they have the best colors too, by the way. I mean, and the helmet. I love the helmet also. Obviously, a lot of tradition there. Falvey, Riley Green got his first Grand Slam instead. Tiger still lost. Yeah. I know the Athletics have been feisty. And Matt Chapman, that's Val's guy for sure. All right, so let's look at the college football. Now, let me turn my attention here. A week from tomorrow in Philadelphia, the Dallas Cowboys. I wish it wasn't the Cowboys. Why couldn't they put the Lions? Because I believe the Lions do go to Philadelphia later this year. To me, that would have been the more intriguing game because nobody cares about the Cowboys. And I get it. There are many Cowboy haters out there. There are, of course, a lot of Cowboy fans as well. And we understand their ratings bonanza. The owner is always front and center. Excuse me. Now you have the situation with Micah Parsons. It's almost as if is he going to make it on the plane to Philadelphia to be in uniform there next Thursday night. And not to belabor this point, I would think that's going to be the case. I'd be shocked if he gets traded. And despite Jerry Jones, whether he's deflecting or whether he just doesn't want to answer it, and even though he has answered in the past, do you expect Micah Parsons to be in uniform there on opening night? And he said no. And this was what, 2.5, 3 weeks ago? So, yeah, I'm not intrigued by this game in the least. But similar to the college football where they started their schedule last week, to me, the NFL schedule begins a week from this Sunday, September 7th. That is when the NFL season begins because you have the game next Thursday night, but then you also have the game next Friday night. And for those saying, wait, there's a Friday night game, Jay Reels? Well, remember last year the Eagles opened up the Sao Paulo schedule against the Packers, and then you got Chargers Chiefs there in Sao Paulo again. And it's on Peacock. So if you don't have that streaming service and you're wondering, wait a minute, how come I can't get the game? It's not on NBC. It's not on any of the regular networks. I don't see it on ESPN. It's not on Prime. Nope. It is going to be on Peacock. The NFL, NFLing, and I understand it's the world we live in now with streaming, but I'm still not pumped up for the season just yet, despite the fact that there's every football fan in America right now that's just like this. Can't wait. And I'm sure they're getting their fantasy teams together, which, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I wouldn't do fantasy if my life depended on it. And I understand it's a stretch, but you know where I'm coming from because I just can't get wrapped up in that. I can't. To me, I think I may have said this last week, so I'll say it quick to be brief. Playing fantasy football as a diehard sports fan, not just a casual sports fan, not just a fan of your team, no, as a sicko nut job sports fan, it is, quote, underline, immoral to have a fantasy football team and be a diehard fan of whichever team you root for. And why, you may ask that? Because I would have to draft players, if it was me, I would have to draft players that aren't going to play the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. And we know that's next to impossible to do. And in fact, I spoke to a friend of mine just last week who I got to get in touch with sometime soon, where he tried fantasy football once. This is back in 1988. And all he did was draft Jets and Giant players because that year he knew the Jets and Giants weren't playing against one another. And number two, hey, those are the teams I root for, so I'm going to pick them where I don't have to worry about picking, oh, geez, this quarterback in that division. Let's say, for instance, me, Joe Burrow's there. Do I draft him? No, I'm not going to draft him out of spite because he plays in my division, and that means I got to root for him to do well against my team twice a year. And right, he could put up all the passing yards. He could put up all the touchdowns. He could put up all the beautiful stats that what a good quarterback does. And yes, I get it. If the Steelers win 41-40, you have the perfect scenario. Well, if you could guarantee me that prior to the game, then you know what? I'll draft Joe Burrow to go up against the Steelers. Or I'll draft Derrick Henry. Or I'll draft a guy like T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. But as we all know, there are no guarantees. That is why I do not do fantasy football. And with the roster cuts, let me see here. Was there anything that was going on? Yeah, there weren't really any roster cuts to discuss or even get into. As I'm looking at here. Ravens make Kyle Hamilton the highest paid NFL safety. How much is that? 4 years, $100 million, largest deal for a safety in NFL history. And he's very good. I got to give it up. So, and I can't stand the Ravens. Ugh. Shake it off. But yeah, that's what you have with the fantasy, and that's pretty much what you have with the NFL. What is this? Rashee Rice accepts 6-game suspension. And Hamilton, yeah, that's pretty much the only thing you have there. I know Adam Thielen returns to the Vikings in a trade. But, yeah, Texans unsure of Mixon's status for the upcoming season because he has this ankle injury, but I think it's worse than what it's showing. But that's what you have with the football. I'll talk more about it next week. And I'm actually contemplating on whether or not to do next week's live stream as an NFL preview. Because if you recall, back in March, I did a baseball preview here on the live stream where I didn't have to record a separate audio recording or video for that matter in regards to the baseball preview. So I actually may do that. Stay tuned. I'll make an announcement on Monday in regards to that. But I think that's going to be the case. But for the official word, I'll have that early next week. All right, and real quick, I know this is probably take about 2 minutes. Well, let me get to the comments first before I do that. Cole, I appreciate your participation as always. You know that. Yes, Lions. Tim Patrick this morning. Yes, the big target to Jacksonville. 6th-round pick. And I would love to see the Lions. Listen, I know we talked about that offline. Yeah, and the thing is that I have to sign him to a contract. It's not a situation where if they brought him over, yeah, I guess he could play out. There's 1 year left there, but you're not going to make a trade, give up whatever assets you have, and then for him not to sign on the dotted line come the offseason. But listen, that would be fantastic. I'm sure you would do cartwheels and backflips, etc., if that was the case. But we all know that Jerry's World, it's a circus there. It's an atmosphere that it's all about the owner and not much else. He is the star. He is the focal point. He is everything, whether it's after a practice, during a practice, after a game, midweek, end of the week. I mean, it's just way too much Jerry Jones all the time. And I understand. He's the owner. But what do the other 31 owners do or have been doing here throughout the course of the preseason? Have you seen them in front of a camera? Have you seen them in front of a microphone? Have you seen them babble about whatever's happening or whatever's going on? You know what the answer to that is? That is a big fat no. So until he steps away, until he steps down from ownership of this ball club, before the kids take it over, the Stephen Joneses of the world, he's going to continue to do what he's going to do. And what that could actually mean is that you're looking at a little over above average football, but 9-8, 10-7, 11-6, maybe a first round win in the wild card, and then bye-bye in the divisional round. Yeah, Adam Thielen too. And they needed that possession receiver because you have Justin Jefferson, as you know, and they also have TJ Hawkinson, the tight end. But to get that other guy that is reliable, that's been around, and Thielen, as we all know, excellent hands. We shall see. Now, I don't know if the Vikings are going to have a carbon copy of what they did last year. They came out of nowhere, and they had pretty much the last of the remains with certain guys there on the team. Nobody knew if you're going to have certain – whoa, almost knocked this over. You don't know if you're going to have a scenario where J.J. McCarthy, is he going to flourish this year? Is he going to be a guy that is almost going to pick up the slack from where Sam Darnold left off last year in the regular season? I don't know. I couldn't even tell you how the Vikings will do because I don't know McCarthy. Now, of course, you've seen him at Michigan. I know Cole, you've seen him plenty, but is he going to be enough, at least in this first year, under center to have the Vikings be I don't want to say force, but have enough of an impact there in the NFC North to be a playoff team? So that's what you got there with the NFL and roster cuts. Yeah, there wasn't really anything earth-shattering as far as roster cuts go. So that is that. Let me make sure I just copy this because this is going to be not the next thing, but the thing after that I will get into. All right. As far as this topic, which I know not many people may be on top of, the U.S. Open on the other side of the bridge from where I live in Queens, and I understand you had the Daniil Medvedev, that whole meltdown on Monday night, really was Sunday night, banging his racket all over the court and stupid gestures, etc. But the big story of the last couple of days was Coco Gauff, as she barely got out alive in her second round because she had played on Sunday. And here it was. She was actually going into the final set after a tiebreak set there at 2, but was able to outlast her opponent and win. And we know that she had just a terrible performance at Wimbledon after winning the French Open there back in the early part of June. But how I look at Gauff, and just speaking to the women's side, it is a lot more wide open than it is on the men's, because the men's, we would think that Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, round 3 is going to likely happen. And, of course, they've been in the last 2 finals as far as representing for the men's side in Wimbledon and at the French Open. So Novak Djokovic, I get it. A lot of people are going to look at him as a guy that, despite his recent injury history, one that could possibly be the guy to beat one of those two. But he has such a terrible draw. If it went chalk from now till next week, he would have to face in the quarterfinal Taylor Fritz, very good player. I think he's ranked 8th in the world. Carlos Alcaraz, ranked number 2 in the world, and then Jannik Sinner. So if by any way, means, shape, if Djokovic wins this tournament, he will have earned it and then some. And that'll be number 25 overall, which has eluded him over the last couple of years. So we'll see whether or not you'll have a scenario where Djokovic could even threaten the top 2. And then the women's side is wide open. I know Jessica Pegula, she got ousted earlier on. I believe lost in the first round. Oh, no, that was Madison Keys, right? Yes, not Jessica Pegula. Let me just double check. Jessica Pegula. Yeah, I believe she's going up against. Yeah, no, Pegula won on Sunday. And now today, she's going up against Pliskova. But the other. Drawing blanks here. Yeah, the other. I know you can probably hear and feel the wheel turning in my head. All right, I digress. Let me get off this. The women's side is actually a lot more wide open, intriguing. Just talked about Gauff. You know about Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina. You can't forget now Madison Keys is gone, so you don't have to worry about her. She won the Aussie Open earlier this year. Iga Świątek, who won Wimbledon in surprising fashion. Who knows what you're going to get out of the Naomi Osakas of the world and players like that, where Osaka hasn't been able to get past the 3rd round, I believe, in any of her matches upon a return. So, yeah, I think that this is going to be fascinating on the women's side to see how this shakes down here over the next 2 weeks. And the men's side is quite the opposite. So that's how I'm looking at it. And I picked Alcaraz and Świątek to win the U.S. Open. And the final Grand Slam of 2025 already. Here it is, late August, the final few days as we count them down. And, yeah, it's looking like it's just going by way too fast. And before we know it, you'll crown a champion for both the men's and women's a week from this coming Sunday out in Flushing Meadow. And then you will not hear about tennis until the start of 2026. All right. Oh, excuse me. My voice. Comment there. We got Cole. I don't know. It's iffy. JJ wasn't asked to do too much in Michigan. Yeah, you're right. He wasn't asked to do too much there when he was with the Wolverines. And different role. Now, he has a very good coach there, Kevin O'Connell, who could certainly be a guy that could craft up an offense for McCarthy and have some success there. Obviously, the offensive line is going to have to be stout. They're going to have to keep them upright. But, yeah, it's right now that's a wild card. We don't know what McCarthy's going to be in the pro level, and obviously we're going to find out a lot sooner than later when they suit up there week 1. And who are they playing in week 1? Vikings schedule. Oh, Monday night against the Bears. Right, and then you have Vikings. Look at that. They're going to be done. Is that right? Jeez. The Vikings will be done with the NFC North. I mean, they'd still have to play the Ravens down the road. But, yeah, they play 3 straight games against the AFC North, but both of those games are overseas. The Steeler game is in Dublin, and the Viking game against the Browns. Yeah, I don't know where that's at, but I know it's overseas. Let's see if this will pull up here quickly. No, it does not. All right. So that's what you got there. So that's with the football, J.G. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell. All right. Now I'm going to wrap this up here with my final comment, my announcement, which is big. And I believe, Cole, you're the only one that's on now. I don't think Val is on, and Val was on last night just like you were. But for those who are not watching, and you see it there on the graphic, my big announcement, join me on Assist. Let me get the link out here too as well. That's important. Just in case you want to see for yourself. Hopefully I can put this up in the chat room and you're able to click and go about your merry way. Let's go to comments. Now, this is a situation where this has come down the pike here over the last week. And there is the link there I just posted in the room. Somebody have reached out to me to talk about this platform where it's like the Twitch for sports. And I'm not on Twitch. As you know, I do the live stream predominantly through YouTube. And even if I did a podcast pregame, I do that through my phone. But doing it through your phone and not having a platform, and I understand that I could still do this and set it up. But what I like about Assist is that, unfortunately, you can't watch the game unless you have the package, depending on where you live, and you can watch the game with me. And even then, there may be a few second lag, whether on your end or my end. So if somebody hits a home run and I don't know what's happening, you'll know before I do, and vice versa. But with this platform, not only will you get to see me live, and maybe I'll turn on the TV a little bit louder for you guys and gals, because then at least you can kind of follow what's happening in the background by the announcers and setting the table and the stage for what it has happened and what could possibly happen. And with me and where I factor into all this, it's another way to get the name out, to watch a game live, to really get my thoughts. And I go in on these broadcasters. I go in on the strategy, everything. So there isn't a second that goes by where I ask to myself, what did he just say? And just kind of forget it. If I'm going to get what did he just say, or if I'm going to get in that particular play or sequence, whatever, and I'm going to come out and recite what I see, and you'll get to see and feel my passion, etc. If I wasn't going to be the one to do that, of course, there's a lot of others that are out there to do that, but I feel like it's going to be a bit special to do because you get at least a little bit inside of me watching a game and how I don't get all crazy. I do get crazy at times, but and tonight will probably be just as crazy, because with that being said, tonight I will be going live. Phillies Mets, 7:00. And you'll want to tune in to that link that I sent below. I'm sure you can subscribe or follow, whatever, as I try to continue to build this platform. I think a live stream of any game, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, etc., is a good thing. You get to see the insides of my sports fandom, or the inside of my sports fandom. That didn't sound right off the bat. And throughout the course of the night, I'll break down the game. I'm not going to do a play-by-play, but I'll talk about certain bullet points or certain things that may crop up, or the broadcast itself, which here living in New York, I'm going to get Gary, Keith, and Ron. So therefore, it's a situation where after tonight and moving forward, and of course, I'll make sure I have enough of advance updates to not say, hey, it's 7:05 and I just set up a live stream to watch the Met Philly game tonight. No, I don't want to do that to you. But there may be times where I have to. But my point is that to build this community, to build this following for those who've watched, for those who've seen me do what I do on a live stream. So now imagine doing that times 3, watching a ball game, or in this case, my favorite team, which, as I said earlier, needs the game in a worse way. So keep that in mind. Flip-flop. Big announcement. Join me on Assist. Live streaming sporting events. And then, boom. Can the Mets get the sweep? Can they get to now 4 games back of the NL East division? My fingers are crossed. I hope that's the case. And let's see how that's going to shake down there tonight. So please follow, subscribe there on Assist. Although I do tie it into the platform that I'm using now with StreamYard. So you won't be able to miss a beat or skip a beat in this process. So that's what I got cooking there when it comes to another avenue to potentially gain more followers, gain more trust in you guys and gals, the audience, because one more time, without you, it's just me talking into a microphone and looking into the camera. And even if it's a thing where it's just you and Cole, or in this case, me and Cole, or Cole and I, make sure I get that properly, and nobody else is on, that's fine. Because just having that one person, not only it means a lot, but that means somebody out there is paying attention. And to you, Cole, and the missus, I commend you and applaud you. But that's what you got. Where, and I'll forecast, I'll give you guys enough time to hop on board to where, let's say, whenever that next game is going to be, it could be a Monday night game in the NFL, could be baseball, basketball, hockey, it doesn't matter. I'll do my best to maintain it, stay on top of it, which I have done with the podcast and these live streams, but it's a little bit more difficult because it's one of those things where, how can I put it? Trying to articulate a certain way, and it's for whatever the reason the words aren't coming out, but it's one of those things where I'm just grateful, just thankful, the whole nine, as I'm just kind of getting lost in my words here, so my apologies. I think I need some more water, and I think I need to eat too, because I haven't had anything as of yet. As you know me, I'm fasting and just trying to get through. But anyway, right, whether it's the one person that's on there, it doesn't matter, because as you all know, I appreciate you all. Now, all right, let's get to it. Yes, Val. You'll check it out tonight. I appreciate that, Cole. I know both of you were on board last night during my trial run. And Cole's wife, yes. Thank you, Cole's wife. Let's see. What else do I got for you? Anything else, people, before I bid adieu? As you all know, podcast pregame live tomorrow on YouTube, 9:30, before the podcast records. The latest and greatest of what's happening in sports. Again, don't forget, where is it? My critique video, Sports Media Broken. Is it broken? Is there something wrong with it? Does it need to be fixed? Well, I have the answers to that. So if you haven't watched it, definitely check that out. And then, as always, any last thoughts from the chat room, whatever's on your mind, whatever, it doesn't matter. Sports related, podcast related, the platforms, I don't care. But it is your last chance to get at me now before tomorrow morning. As I mentioned, the podcast pregame, 9:30, as I'll wrap up Mets, Phillies, whatever else is happening in sports. You know I got you covered. We all know the deal. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment. And again, thanks to Cole's wife for subbing this morning. We know about the latest edition of the podcast coming tomorrow. And then, as always, thank you so much for stopping by. Carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what's happening in the world of sports. And for those who follow social or are on social media, want to follow me, you could do it at 3 places: J Reels, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or the J Reels podcast on any one of those 3 accounts. Twitter, J Reels 1, just a number. If you want to hit me up with a question, comment, suggestion, you could do so at the jreelspodcast@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, as you all know. And let me see, I got a comment here. What do we have? 2 days, my head's about to pop. I know, you get a double header. You get me now and you get me later on. Cole, you're too kind. I appreciate that. And yeah, that'll do it. And not only that, this channel here on YouTube, bringing the pain, as I like to say, always coming correct, direct, and in full effect, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. This is why I quit my job almost, 19 months to fulfill this dream of mine, to be a person that you can rely on, that you can trust, that you can know that whatever it is that I put forth is going to be credible. It's going to be done with integrity. It's not clickbaity. It's not rage bait. It's not look at me, ha, 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 whatever. No. As your source for all the source in the world of sports, it's made by a sports fan for the sports fan, and in the blood and the DNA sports. If you don't know, now you know. And if you still don't know, you're going to have to come back tomorrow for the podcast pregame, or better yet, tonight while I'm watching Phillies Mets on assist. And the link is there. Do I need to post it again? I'll repost it if I have to. The link is there. You know where it's at. So tonight, 7 o'clock. Let me get that banner up before I get to that last comment. Yes, bio, double dip. You get me now and you get me tonight at 7 o'clock or 4 o'clock your time there, bio, while we watch Mets Phillies. And again, you're not going to get a broadcast of the game, or maybe you'll get it from my TV. If you hear it in the background, I'll jack it up just enough. But that is going to be the first of many games I'm going to stream. And I'll probably do NFL Week 1. I may do Steelers Jets. I'm a Steeler fan. You're going to get a lot of Steelers. But if there's a marquee matchup, I'll make sure to I wouldn't say make sure, but I'll post ahead of time what I'm going to do so you can watch live, get my reactions. We'll go back and forth. We could talk about all the other games. Obviously, it's not just relegated to Mets Phillies or Steelers Jets Week 1 or whatever. Dallas, Philadelphia next Thursday night. I'm not going to do it. I don't think I'm going to do a live stream for that. But that's what you're going to get with yours truly, because I'm going to not only put out the 2 podcasts a week, now I'm going to put out I've already put 3 live streams out, 1 dedicated this one. The other 2 are kind of impromptu. You get the critique videos. You get the commentary videos. Now you're going to get me live streaming games. And that could be once a week, twice a week. Who knows? So a lot on this channel. Tell your family, friends, foes, frenemies that like sports, love sports, the diehard, the casuals, the kooks like us that are here today. If you can't get enough, trust me, because I can't. That's why you keep on coming back as your source for the source. Let me rewind and say that again. Your source for all the sauce in the world of sports. One more comment. What I got here. Bio. Can Nolan McClain go 3-0? I'm going to say I think he can. Do I think he will is another question. I think they have enough tape on him to know what to lay off. Now, the Phillies are a free-swinging team, and he does have very good off-speed stuff. So, it's a good question, Bio. I'm going to say, what the hell? I'm going to say yes. He's got to go 5. And is Ranger Suarez pitching? Yankees already up 1-0. Jeez. Yeah, they're going to sweep the Nationals. I mean, that's no big deal. Yankee fans get pumped up again. Meanwhile, they lost 3 out of 4 to the Red Sox. Who was the pitcher tonight? Should know this. Bad job on my part. Oh, yeah, Taijuan Walker. I mean, if they can't tattoo Taijuan Walker, then, There's no hope for them at all. So I can see the Mets win tonight. I'll say Nolan McLean, yes, goes 3-0. Why not? Anything else happening in sports? No, that is it. All right. So that's what we got, people. I'm getting ready to wrap up. Hopefully, I'll see you guys later on tonight. Again, on that live stream. I'll post a link probably around, I guess, like the 5 o'clock hour, only because I tried to do it earlier today, but I guess they do it as they don't have the game posted yet. I'm sure as you get closer. As a matter of fact, you know what? While I have you, let me see if I can do that now. Ready? Or do I have to refresh the page maybe? Yeah, it's only giving me San Diego, Seattle. Let me refresh it. Hold on. Sport event. Oh, they have it. All right. So you know what? After I sign off here, I will post the link. Well, it'll come up on my YouTube feed, so you'll see that there. But tonight, 7 o'clock, going live, Mets Phillies should be fun. All right, guys. So with that being said, hope to see you guys there tonight. Thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your days, you know. And whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do. In the blood and the DNA, talking sports since birth. With nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury, with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are. The J Reels live stream, always coming live, correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. Until later on tonight on the next live stream, hope to see you there. Mets Phillies with yours truly on the foot, baby.